Hi again, it's Sue here from Maze. Now, one of the videos that got the most views recently was the one that I did with my daughter Emily about anxiety. And I can see that every time I post something on social media or we cover it in a video, it's a topic that lots of people get in touch about. It seems like the topic that everybody wants a bit of help with. So here's another video for you today on understanding and managing anxiety. So to give you a little bit more information on this topic, I'm joined today by my friends and colleagues, Michelle from Find Your Spark and Annie from Autism and ADHD. Hi folks.
Hi.
Thanks for coming to speak to me today.
You're welcome.
So Michelle, your organisation is Find Your Spark, and
Yes.
like Annie and I, you are also a social enterprise in the charitable sector. Just tell me about what you do.
Okay, so I set up Find Your Spark in 2011 in London, and it was predominantly for at-risk young people. I wanted to raise their well-being, their resilience and their aspiration. And then I moved to Colchester and I carried on doing that, and then I realised there was a lot of need to work with parents, which wasn't something I'd looked at properly before. And then I realised to myself, actually I'd have a lot bigger reach and impact if I actually worked with the parents, because they'd have that emotional maturity to understand what it was I was saying, but also I wouldn't just be working with that one parent, because that parent would then speak to their partner perhaps, to their child or children, their friends, and so it would be much bigger reach. So that's what I've started doing recently, which has been really, really good.
Brilliant, thanks. And Annie, you're from Autism and ADHD, so tell us about what you do.
So we support families and professionals, obviously around autism and ADHD, and we're helping them develop strategies and learn about obviously anxiety, but equally what their children's fears and worries are and how to solve them.
Yeah. So what we find at Maze is that this topic of anxiety comes up a lot.
Yes.
And usually what I do is say round the room, hands up, who's got a child who's struggling with anxiety? I would say 80% of people put their hand up. And when we get to know families over the weeks, what I'm finding is that anxiety is mostly related to going to school. And the problems around anxiety are usually during term times, and they're less so in the holidays. And then peak anxiety times are like Sunday night before Monday morning, if there's any changes coming up at school, or at the end of a holiday period when it's time to go back again. And for me, I feel like what we have is an education system that has become such a challenge for our children that it's creating anxiety. I don't know about how you feel, but I feel like there's a lot of talk in the media about, oh, it's social media and it's gaming and all these kind of other influences. But I feel like, for me, I think social media, obviously it doesn't help, but it's an echo chamber for what's really going on. And, you know, I've been a teacher for over 25 years. And in that time, what I've seen is a system that's transformed into valuing young people according to their worth in data. What attendance data, what target data, what exams data will they produce. And so there's this like fixation with getting this data at all costs, and because what will Ofsted say? And I think it's just created this enormous pressure cooker upon young people to be at this level. And I'm not, you know, not complaining about any or criticising any professionals working in that system, because, you know, I've been one of them for years myself. I think, you know, people are genuinely there doing the best that they can. But I think we have a system that's created that. What do you think?
I have to agree. I think schools are now, not all schools, but a lot of schools are now being run as businesses. And when you run a school like a business, it's all about targets, it's all about outcomes, and if a child doesn't fit a certain mould and slightly skew with, that's not good for the school.
No, and this is why, you know, within the SEND sector, what we're seeing is enormous numbers of children being off-rolled, being excluded, sometimes illegally excluded or exclusions not marked, and all sorts of those kind of manipulations so that they don't skew the data. That's enormously pressurising, isn't it? It's a terrible system to have.
But I think a lot of it is because some schools don't understand ASD, ADHD, SEND. Not they understand a certain child and how a certain child behaves. When the child is slightly different, they don't understand it. And I'm not saying that's all schools, because some schools are fantastic, but a lot of the schools I hear about from parents don't understand.
Same. How about you, Annie? What's your experience of this topic of anxiety been in the work that you do and the families you see?
So when we focus purely from an autism and ADHD perspective, we have to really explore where that anxiety is coming from, but equally what it is about their diagnosis that actually exacerbates that for them. So there's a clear connection around how we all try and keep ourselves safe, and we all use our imaginations to do that. So anxiety tends to come from things that haven't happened yet, that we're worrying about in the future, even in the next half an hour. It doesn't have to be like years in the future. So, and we use our imagination therefore to make choices about what we're going to do, risk assess whether they're going to be okay for us, what the environment's going to be like today, all of those things. And when you've got an imagination that's coming more from autism ADHD based place, that imaginative process can get fractured and messy, and we have children that will over imagine worst possible outcome. It's just all going to be awful, I'm never up, so I just need to stay here where it's safe, but equally can't see ahead, can't understand that they have a choice, and being able to divert it into something that's going to make them feel better. They need a different resource and strategy to do that.
And it could be really hard, can't it, for a parent to understand that if they don't have autism themselves,
Absolutely.
because it's really hard to imagine that from somebody else's perspective,
Absolutely.
who doesn't have the same worldview as you.
Yeah.
No,
And similar for schools as well, I suppose. Like you say, if a parent doesn't understand it because they don't have it, but for schools, if a teacher or a head teacher doesn't have it and doesn't have that understanding, it must be very difficult. So
Absolutely, and we see that all the time, and where we go in, and so my big thing is about making something that actually can be quite complicated really easy to understand, and therefore once we present that, everyone will go, oh my goodness me, now I understand why they get worried about maths because we've moved it from one day to another, or they're worried because they upset their friend yesterday but they don't know what to do with that, and so they'd rather stay at home than have that resilience to come in and manage it, but not because of it, but because their brains don't allow them to see ahead and do that because of how their autism is.
It's so important.
And that's why I always recommend your training to schools and parents, and obviously the MAZE programme, because you're able to educate schools and educate
It's
parents.
so important.
Yeah.
It's not their fault if they've never been told what it is.
Exactly, schools might not understand
and it's everyone's on a journey, because, and also the knowledge is changing and growing all of the time, and it's important to keep up to date with that too.
So Michelle, how about you? What do you experience in your work around this topic of anxiety?
So currently I'm working with parents because I received quite a lot of funding in order to be able to do that, which is going really well in Colchester. And so I am working with parents who've got children who have autism and ADHD. And what I'm picking up and what I'm kind of sensing is that a lot of this is coming from the child not being particularly safe. So following on from what you said, sometimes it's because the connection might not be there between parent and child for whatever reason. Something may have happened, a separation between parents or something like that, and it's caused that disconnect. And then there's another thing that another buzzword that I'm kind of processing at the moment, which is to do with simplification. I feel like our lives have become very full of stuff. Yeah, and there's a lot of stress. And for a child, when you've got lots and lots of stuff and you've got lots and lots of stress, too much stress, it can get a bit too overwhelming, especially if you've got autism and ADHD. But even if you haven't, it can get a bit much.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's about simplifying things, I think, and making things a lot easier for our children and for ourselves. So not having as much stuff, and instead of stuff, we give quality time with our child, rather than giving them things, and just simplifying things so it's not so complicated or complex. It's all just very simple, very easy, and there's a lot of space. And time.
Just being in the moment.
Yeah,
being in the moment, not scrolling on a phone.
No, exactly, and it does happen, doesn't it? And if you're not present with your child, if you're constantly looking at your phone, what's that going to say to the child? I'm not important. Mum doesn't think much about me. You want them to always think that you're in their attention.
Yeah. So, Michelle, I know in your work you're a psychologist, and a lot of the work you've done has been about building resilience in children. Can you just explain what that is?
Yeah, so a lot of the resilience stuff comes from positive psychology, which I know you really,
I love.
Yeah, you resonate well with. And that's kind of a lot to do with certain things. For example, broadening your attention rather than narrowing it. And when you broaden it, that kind of makes you feel a bit more grateful for what you've got and appreciate what you've got. So I talk a lot about gratitude journals. I'm a big believer in gratitude journals and how that can build a child's resilience, because it makes them not be so focused on all the problems. it broadens their horizon, broadens their attitude, and go, well, yes, this happened, that wasn't so good today, but I got to have a chocolate bar, it was sunny, I got to see my friends. And if you do that on a long enough basis, then for a child it can really help with their resilience and really help them think, I can cope, I can figure this out.
And that's great.
Yeah.
Love that. And Annie, I know you work a lot with parents, and you have a lot to say about parents' resilience. What's your take on that?
Well, we always talk very much from a personal space. So because of the 3 children that I have that are all now grown up, but when they were little, with their diagnostic profiles being what they were, there were certainly days where I used to call them my duvet days. I really just wanted to pull the duvet over my head and hope that it was just, if I kept my eyes closed long enough, it would all just go away.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not how it works. You have to find something almost in the pit of your stomach that's going to get you up and get moving. And for me, it was like, just put your legs on the floor, legs out of the bed and your feet on the floor, and then just get going. And once there, I was fine. And I think where we work with our families with that, because all of the team have got that personal connection. They've been there. They know what it's like when there are days where you just want it to go away, but you find something in you and what that is. And we talk a lot about that with our families, about what is it that forces you forward. And I think the main thing is about realising that no one will fight for your child like you will, and that your role is very important. And I think also we talk a lot with our families around resilience is also heavily around self-care and making sure that they have time to look after themselves, because if they're not okay, they've got nothing left to be able to do.
We always say at Maze, it's like they say on the aeroplane, you have to put your own gas mask on first before you can attend to everybody else.
Else's. Yeah, it's really important.
But I know when I said that in trainings, parents would say, oh, but I don't have time to give myself self-care. I don't have time to have a bath. And I was like, you've got to make time.
That's
even
right.
if it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Reading a book.
It's literally the most important thing you'll do for your family.
Yeah.
It
It's
is to
the
look
first
after
thing
yourself.
you do in the day. You've got to look after yourself, because otherwise you're not going to be any good for your children.
No, and I think there's a very high priority around, when we talk about resilience, I think that is a very big part of that. Putting your own things in your calendar first before you then put your children, and we all do it the other way round as natural. We need to make sure that the children are sorted, and then we try and squeeze ourselves in there when actually we need to actually learn and do it the other way around.
Good point.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for coming to chat with me today.
Thanks for having
and
us.
if you've enjoyed it, you can come and join the 3 of us at our workshop on anxiety, which is on Friday the 3rd of April from 9:30 till 1:30 in North part of Colchester. I'll put the link to booking below this video. And it will be the 3 of us talking about strategies for supporting your children, looking after yourself, and surviving life with an anxious child. Looking forward to it.
Same.
Yeah, dream team.
It really
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah.
Love it.
So see you there.
Yeah.
Thank
Hope
you.
you can join
See
us.
you.
Bye.
Bye.